Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Today I've got 3 amazing Dogman encounters to share with you. 2 from Colorado and 1 from Wyoming. Before we get into these encounters, a couple links I'd like to share as well. As you know, I rely on my Patreon, PayPal, and merch to help keep this channel growing and going. Those links are in the description below, as well as the link for my second channel. It's for creepypasta, fan fiction, and scary voice acting. Stories that don't fit on this channel. Now, if that's anything that you're into, follow that link and give it a listen. You may just like what you hear. I also started a GoFundMe page to help raise some money for urban exploration, cryptid hunting, and ghost hunting equipment. If that's anything that you're willing to help with, that link is in the description as well. And with that, guys, I've taken enough of your time. Let's get on with these 3 Dogman encounters. Shall we? Today's first Dogman encounter comes to us from Boulder, Wyoming. October 15th, 2010, 1 in the morning. About 8 years ago, my brother John was heading home from his girlfriend's house off a country road outside of Boulder, 11 miles south of Pinedale, Wyoming. It was around 1 or 2 in the morning when he saw what he said was a huge dog traverse down the slope on the south side of the road and commence to run alongside his pickup. He was driving a 69 or 70 Ford F-150 Highboy, which came from the factory lifted. The Dogman was running with him at 30 to 40 miles an hour. There was a 2 to 3 foot burrow ditch running along the road, and the Dogman's head was level with his as he was driving. So John puts the height at 7 to 8 feet. It was dark in color with gray or white on its muzzle running from its nose to under its eyes, which were amber in color. He sped up to 45 and the Dogman kept up with him, often looking inside the truck. He said at around 50 miles an hour he lost it, and that's all he would tell me. Today's second Dogman encounter comes to us from Prowers County, Colorado, February 9th, 2017. Well, I'm 24 years old, male, and I live in the middle of nowhere. Literally. I will be short and simple about my encounter. I was getting home late one day from dropping my sister off to the airport in Lamar, Colorado. I live just under 7 miles north of the Oklahoma border on 250 acres of land. I have a trap line running around my property for the coyotes. The first 2 traps I checked were empty, so I headed south. That's when I saw this thing. At first I thought it was a coyote, big coyote. It was almost 5 feet tall on all 4s, and it was caught in my trap and was running around making a dust cloud. And then it stopped and looked at me. Now I use a Duke number 3 leg hold trap so I can catch a variety of things in it. Anyway, I slammed on the brakes and my truck stalled because it's a manual. I was fumbling for the keys to start it. It's an old farm truck with a carburetor on it, and it had quite an afterfire. Once it heard that, it lunged at me and roared. I saw that it had its hand, not its paw, but hand caught in my trap. Right hand, to be exact. It had probably been looking for the dead rabbit I had in the bait hole next to the trap. It then stood up and ripped the 2 earth anchors I had 24 inches in the ground right out. It took me a long time to put them in with a 10-pound hammer, but it pulled them straight out within 15 seconds. After it did that, it just stood there looking at me. It felt like an eternity, and I knew my .357 would do nothing to stop this thing if it came at me. I prayed to God that it wouldn't come for me in my truck. I was looking at it in shock and awe and noticed that it had orange eyes. They weren't glowing, instead they had a tint like a cat's eyes in the dark. They may have been reflecting my headlights, I can't be sure. It then took a step towards me, curled up its upper lip, showing me its teeth. They were huge. The longest two had to have been 4 to 5 inches long. It then growled at me, and then it was gone in the blink of an eye. I was scared crapless then. I jammed the truck into gear and spun the tires, getting out of Dodge. Like I said earlier, it seemed like an eternity, but it must have lasted no more than 30 seconds at max. I later returned with an Indian friend of mine. He was part Arapaho. I grew up with him and I trusted him, and he told me some stories that were passed down through his grandparents' tribe and mentioned something about the loup de gros, or French werewolf. He also told me how fur trappers in the late 17 and 1800s were chased off the land in the Rockies from this thing. I used to work till about 10 or 11 at night, but now I sleep with the lights on. It sounds silly for a 24-year-old to be doing that, but to be honest to God, I'm still frightened by this thing. I haven't bothered going out looking for my lost track because I bet that thing has torn it apart by now. Our third and final Dogman encounter comes to us from Pueblo, Colorado, January 28th, 2018, 7 or 8 o'clock at night. Hey folks, I don't want my name out on the internet because it never goes away. Anyway, a few years ago, I decided to contact the BFRO, having Yetis, or Bigfoot, on my place. I call them Yeti because they have 3 toes instead of 5. I always knew we had more than one cryptid on the place. I live on a river and have about 18 acres of land. The Dogman has been sighted off a Lime Road, which also borders my river. I'm from Pueblo, Colorado, and I live on the St. Charles River, which dumps into the Arkansas River. The researchers had me put out camps to see if I could catch any Bigfoot activity. I did, and over the years have caught other strange creatures on cam. I call them hybrids. My encounters started when I was 8 years old in 1969 when a huge Bigfoot stood in front of my dad's tractor. And it has continued to this day with other creatures as well. I have a pic of a Dogman I caught in the river. It takes up a span of 4 feet wide. He has huge shoulders and is staring directly at the camera across from it. Yes, it is black, has ears that tip in towards themselves, and scars on its face, and it appears he's not too happy about having his picture taken. I felt very vindicated when I got that pic, and I blew it up in a Word so I could get a good look at the creature. Quite ugly to say, at least. It is a day pic, right about when the sun is setting. A very good pic. In the pic, he's not standing, but buffed out, squatting, looking at the cam. That's not all, guys. I keep my big dogs in at night because I don't want them killed. I have an older blue heeler and an Irish wolfhound mix. He's not as big as an Irish wolfhound, but nonetheless is fast and aggressive. I almost lost him last fall. He was 3 at the time. I came home and he wasn't there to greet me. I found him beat up and a 6-inch slash at his groin, which almost cut his femoral artery. He had no bite marks at all, but he was beat up all over his body like something pulverized him. He was so swollen that you could push in and the swelling would push in like a semi-inflated balloon. I called my pasture neighbor, who indeed said there was a fight in the river at about 9 a.m. She said it sounded horrible and heard a dog screaming. Well, I said it was my dog. It changed my dog's personality. He's more cautious, and when these creatures are around, will not leave my side, nor will he venture to the river. Irish wolfhounds are ear, sight, and smell dogs, and when he stands on his hind legs or raises his head smelling the air and turns around and comes back to me, something is afoot in that river. I've had many instances with these creatures on my place, and I've lost a few good dogs to that river and what runs it. My researchers are mostly into Bigfoot and don't come around much anymore. Matter of fact, one moved away to another part of Colorado. They are cryptozoologists, gentlemen. Be very careful when going into the woods with these things. I can prove these creatures and others are not what you know as normal animals. Dogmen are very hard to kill, as well as Bigfoot, or as well as the other cryptids on my place. I hope you carry a very large caliber weapon when out humping in the woods. Well, there you go, guys. 3 Dogman encounters. 2 from Colorado, 1 from Wyoming. From what I'm getting out of these ones is these guys are very, very aggressive. Of course, we all know that. I love it when I hear people say they want to live in nature and harmonize. You know, every encounter that I've read or come across, they're very dangerous. I mean, not every. I've come across a couple. You know, the one in Shelter Island is the one that pops to my mind with the little girl, and the creature isn't aggressive. But for the majority of them, they are. Anyway, I've got a bunch more stories to share with you, and I hope you enjoyed these encounters. With that, I bid you farewell.